Karen's sneer could curdle milk from a mile away. She stood on my lawn, arms crossed over her bulging frame, claiming my house was built on her land. As if I'd snuck in overnight and plopped a 2-story colonial on her property like some kind of architectural bandit. It started on a muggy Tuesday evening in our quiet suburban cul-de-sac, where the biggest drama was usually Mrs. Henderson's yappy chihuahua. I was watering my petunias when Karen waddled over, her flip-flops slapping the pavement like a metronome of doom. She'd always been the neighborhood menace, yelling at kids for biking too close to her mailbox, reporting Mr. Patel's unauthorized shed to the HOA, and once trying to fine me for a fence she claimed was 2 inches too tall. But this was a new level of audacity. She thrust a crumpled surveyor's map in my face, jabbing at it with a manicured nail. "This land is mine," she barked, her voice dripping with smug certainty. "Your house is on my property, and I want you out." I blinked, dumbfounded. My family had lived here for a decade, 3 generations of birthday parties, scraped knees, and Christmas lights strung across the porch. The deed was framed in my office, a relic from when my grandparents bought the place in '78. Karen, who'd moved in 2 years ago, had no claim. But reason doesn't work on someone who believes the world owes them a throne. She'd already called a lawyer, she said, and was ready to sue me into oblivion. "You'll be homeless by next month," she spat, her chins wobbling with glee. The neighbors caught wind fast. By Wednesday, whispers spread like wildfire. Mr. Patel, who'd never forgiven Karen for the shed fiasco, stopped by with a sympathetic nod. "She's unhinged," he muttered, handing me a cup of chai. "You need to fight this." Across the street, Lisa, the single mom who ran the community garden, offered to dig up dirt on Karen figuratively, though I wouldn't put it past her to wield a shovel. Even old Mr. Jenkins, who rarely left his porch, shuffled over to say he'd seen Karen measuring my yard with a tape measure at midnight. Creepy, but not surprising. I wasn't about to let Karen bulldoze my life. I dug out the deed, a yellow document with my grandparents' names inked in elegant cursive. It clearly outlined the property lines, down to the oak tree by the driveway. I called my lawyer, Sarah, a no-nonsense woman who'd handled my parents' estate. She laughed when I told her Karen's claim. "This is a joke, right?" she said. "Get me the deed and any surveys you have. We'll bury her in court." Karen, meanwhile, escalated. She planted stakes in my yard, tied with neon orange tape, marking her territory. She filed a complaint with the city, claiming I was a squatter. She even had the gall to post on the neighborhood Facebook group, spinning a sob story about how I'd stolen her land and was bullying her. A poor single woman just trying to protect her rights. The comments were brutal. Half the neighbors called her out, but a few bought her act, leaving crying emojis and promises to stand with Karen. I wanted to scream. The real kicker came when Karen showed up with a surveyor she'd hired. A nervous guy named Tim who looked like waffle fries were his only source of joy. He stammered through his explanation, pointing at a map that conveniently extended Karen's property line right through my living room. I asked for his credentials. He mumbled something about online certification and scurried off when I pressed harder. Karen, undeterred, screamed that she'd have my house demolished if I didn't vacate by the end of the month. I snapped a photo of her ranting, stakes and all, and sent it to Sarah. "Evidence," I said. She replied with a thumbs-up emoji. The court date came faster than a summer storm. Sarah had prepared a watertight case, the original deed, county records, and a survey from 1980 that matched ours to the inch. Karen strutted into the courtroom, dressed like she was auditioning for a reality show. Her lawyer a slick guy who looked like he charged by the syllable. She presented her evidence, a shoddy survey, and a sob story about how her dream home was being ruined by my illegal house. The judge, a tired-looking woman with no patience for theatrics, barely glanced at Karen's papers before turning to Sarah. Sarah laid out the facts like a chef plating a 5-course meal. The deed was ironclad. The county records backed it. Karen's survey, a fraud, drawn up by a guy who wasn't even licensed in the state. The judge's eyebrows shot up when Sarah showed photos of Karen's stakes in my yard, time-stamped and geotagged. Karen's lawyer tried to pivot, claiming emotional distress, but the judge cut him off. "Ms. Thompson," she said, addressing Karen, "do you understand the consequences of filing a false claim and trespassing?" Karen's face went from smug to ashen. She stammered, blaming her surveyor, the city, even me for tricking her. The judge wasn't having it. She ruled in my favor, ordering Karen to remove her stakes and pay my legal fees. But the real bombshell came when Sarah filed a counterclaim for harassment and trespassing. The judge agreed, issuing an eviction notice for Karen. Her house, it turned out, was on a plot with a lien she'd ignored for years. The court seized her property to cover her debts, including my fees. The neighborhood threw a quiet celebration when the for sale sign went up on Karen's lawn. Mr. Patel brought his famous samosas. Lisa handed out sunflowers from her garden. And Mr. Jenkins toasted with his ancient bottle of whiskey. Karen was gone by the next month, her belongings packed into a U-Haul as she screamed at the movers for scratching her furniture. I watched from my porch, deed in hand, feeling a mix of relief and pity. She'd built her empire on lies and entitlement, and it crumbled faster than her surveyor's credentials. The lesson wasn't just about winning. It was about standing up to bullies who think they can rewrite reality with a loud voice and a bad attitude. Karen thought she could steamroll me, but she forgot one thing: truth doesn't bend to tantrums. My house still stands. Petunias blooming, oak trees shading the driveway. And every time I walk past that fence, I smile, knowing justice doesn't always come fast, but when it does, it hits hard. The end.